Okay, we're getting a late start today on lesson 84 of the Workbook of A Course in Miracles. I went last night and spent the evening with a group of people from around Arroyo Grande, Pismo Beach, who have been studying the course together for a while. And as a matter of fact, the meeting took place in it's a house that was owned by the gentleman who sort of anchored the Unity Church in that area for a while, and he's passed away, and his son has it now, and it's a big, huge meeting room at the end of a house overlooking absolutely everything with spectacular view. And they meet there once a week, and they discuss the Course in Miracles. They have a meeting format that they tend to stick to, and I met them in Fresno, and they invited me up, and it was an enjoyable evening. It was enjoyable to see how there are new people who show up. There are new people who come. There was a new woman there who really, I don't know how they find it, but she had no real idea about A Course in Miracles, and she wanted to learn more, so she wanted to start to come to the meeting. And there were others who are been working with it for a while, but I could see that many of their minds were open, and they were doing high correlations between, of course, this material and other material as well, which is always interesting for me because I tend to stick to A Course in Miracles, and I feel, there's conversations about there being a next step or something beyond A Course in Miracles as another course. And it was one of the things they were talking about last night. Marie Perron, A Course in Love, and JM in the Way of Mastery. And I'm not entirely sure that they are beyond the course. I think that there are particular symbols, and this is something I was discussing last night in regard to the keys of Enoch. There are specific symbols, or let's say archetypical symbols that form the constellation or the basis for categories of people, experiencers, beings who, the separate sons of the sonship, There's some really basic archetypical symbols and sets of symbols that associate in minds in a particular way. Now, we all use our mind the same way, so it's not that they associate differently in one mind than another mind, but the association that the identity uses, put it that way, the association that the identity uses to manufacture a self-image is based on concepts, and a set of symbols that represent those concepts into its mind, and it builds the character out of the symbols within that association, and it erects an image of itself. We all do that. But the best way to take apart or to have any of those systems, let's call it, implode upon themselves, so you can, as this is saying, we can begin to experience ourselves. I says the bottom grievances are completely alien to love. Grievances attack love and keep its light obscure. If I hold grievances, I am attacking love and therefore attacking myself. Myself thus becomes alien to me. I am determined not to attack myself today so that I can remember who I am. So in the process of remembering who I am, we have to undo the symbols that made up the image we thought we were. And there are different associations that have more investment, let's say, in a particular set of symbols as opposed to another set of symbols, or say like the notation that's supposed to be part of Keys of Enoch, which is basically scientific notation. You know, some people think in scientific notation as their language because they're involved in the manufacturing of equations. So scientific notation is a language to them, or music is a language to some people that they're more expressive in than, say, words, English or whatever language, you know, Spanish, whatever it is that they talk. So what happens is, to me, and this is the understanding that I have, once you get the fundamental understanding of what forgiveness is and how it all works, the best way to undo the image that you've made in your mind out of the associations you formulated is to get to the lowest common denominator so that the largest chunks can fall out when the underpinnings of the thought system itself are questioned in the light of a truth, of a reality. And like in what I explained in The Way of Mastery, people take it to be beyond because it was designed to help those people who have more guilt and fear around passion, around their own passion, let's say. They have built up symbols based on passion and physical love and closeness. And that's where their triggers lie. So there's a course, The Way of Mastery deals with symbols that are capable of helping them remember because they are capable of disillusioning them from the imagery in a more rapid way. And I would think that A Course in Love by Marie Perron is much similar to that. It's geared toward, and when people say beyond, it's like you can't get into certain, you have to get yourself into situations, or like the universe has to get you into situations where things would come up that you would never let come up because you're not willingly going to let the monsters out of the closet. So you have to be in a situation where the monsters get triggered to come out because you're not guarding so tightly to let the rage and the fear out so you can begin to see what you're up against in your own mind and heart and begin to forgive yourself and let go of the fearful and guilty associations you have with those symbols that you're using to manufacture the image, so that you can see both that you're the image maker as well as that the imagery has no power over you, because there's something that's true, whole, and perfect in you that is beyond the imagery, and yet has been what you're using to build the imagery from. So they're designed to work with and trigger and help free up your memory. No longer particularize your memory because your minds are opening up. And as your minds open up, the old way of thinking starts to fall away, and for a minute, it presents problems. Because for some of you, you're not experiencing yourself the way you were. You're not thinking the way you were. The things that you previously had in your life are no longer serving the same purpose. And there's the need to sort things out. And all of this is part of how we don't hold grievances against ourselves. We go back and find some of the moments where we have been given the ability to remember love, but instead held a grievance. And situations bring things to our attention that we wouldn't allow ourselves to experience because we're the ones who made the decision to hide them from ourselves. So we have to, in a sense, be willing to be tricked into allowing those situations to come up once again in a form association that we weren't protecting ourselves from, but the form association that represents the exact same thing that we were protecting ourselves from. the agreements were we're never going to let that son of a bitch get the better of us again, no matter what. We felt very foolish in our egoic existence when the self-concept and the image that we made, we felt like it was necessary to protect it, because without protecting it, we would, we would get kicked around and we would taken advantage of. We would be a victim. And we've made decisions based on that kind of thinking that go way back to the beginning of time. And so we need as much help as possible, both in understanding why we did it conceptually, as well as the willingness to cooperate with the universe in its ability to begin to make us aware of those situations in a variant form association, but much like the one that brought up the initial grievance for us, no matter where it was in space and time. And as we begin to forgive ourselves of those things, those are, in a sense, the clouds that we begin to brush away, the clouds that have hidden the light, that have kept us from seeing who we really are without the need for a reflection, but the direct experience of who we are. And when we live under the cloud of the imagery of our own making, with the true self, myself, thus becomes an alien to me, because I know it's out there. I know it's somewhere because I can feel it, and yet I'm dissociated from it. And there's all of it's an illusion. Of course, all of it's an illusion. Even the idea of aliens from other planets are likewise part of the illusion. And one of the things that we begin to sort of see is that we are the maker of the alien culture, and we provide the imagery, and this is how we do it. But the self that we are becomes alien to us, yet the self that we are is never apart from us. So there's always this nagging sort of something nagging at us, causing us to, look back. Like, what was that? And it's just our self. It's our true self that's an alien to us. And in typical fashion of the ego, it makes that thought, that type of thinking, into there's aliens out there who are much unlike ourselves. And you can see where, as that becomes part of what the human mind, the human thinking becomes a preoccupation of, it cannot not then begin to make a form association, albeit, let's call it a fantasy. It's more of a fantasy. It makes up these images of the fantasy of the alien self that is really it, and it gives it all the characters of what it doesn't want to be. And when you begin to put it out there as an image for people to validate, people within a similar vibratory frequency of energy will recognize the image, because it's not dissimilar from how it's pictured aliens in its own mind. And then we come to a consensus, and all of a sudden we have the Greys, or whatever the hell we have, who are attacking us, and it's part of what we have is buried deep within ourselves, and we've become fearful of our own alien self by turning it into an alien that seems to come from another sort of galaxy association or time-space association, because we've distanced ourselves from our own true self, and that self has become alien to us, so we must make an image to provide for the integrity of our mind to have no spaces unfilled. So the ego is the one who fills these spaces with images, and then we project those images outside of ourselves, and we perceive them where we've projected them, And we have all manner of alien space culture that is really still based on ourself, but with alien characteristics that the ego would like us to not think of as thoughts within our own mind. I don't know how that came up in this particular talk. This is no justification for denying myself. I will not use this to attack love. Let this not tempt me to attack myself. And that's what we're learning to do, to learn not to allow our own thoughts, our own attack thoughts, attack us any longer, because there are thoughts and they're attacking the thinker, because the thinker thinks that there's thoughts that go against itself. And in that sense, it's true, it's correct. That's a correct way to think, but you can't think with that same mind and get the solution to the problem, because the mind that is the solution to the problem is exactly opposite to that mind in every way. It's you as a whole, perfect, infinite, eternal. Love created me like itself. Creation, an engine of creation generation, a generator of creation. And it creates, and what it does is it generates what it creates. And it cannot create unlike itself. It's a principle. Principles above personalities, let's say. We try to give personality to God rather than learn of God through utilization of universal principles, which would be a much easier way once we discover and admit that there is a power greater than itself and can restore us to sanity, and we don't decide what that sanity is, and we turn our life and will over to his care so that he may direct how we pass through this sojourn of space-time to learn all the lessons that we need to learn to no longer have to continue to do it over and over again. So love, the creation generator that generates creation, God must have created you to be a unit of creation generation to generate creation much like itself. And if that's all there is, and there isn't anything against it, we call that love. Love is all-encompassing. There's nothing against it. There's nothing inconsistent. There's nothing lacking in the whole perfect love that we are created to be by the creation generator that generated us to be a creation of what he is, and he's love. And we can only create with the same principle. So we must, that's why Jesus says in the Course, and this is what I wanted to say, it says man must come to think of himself as wholly loving and wholly lovable, because the eternal nature, the totality of the eternal nature of God as being love, and as a generator of creation that generates creation exactly like itself, generates units of creation that create love exactly as they were created. And as we all create together this creation generator generating creation, we extend the kingdom and we fulfill our function. So here we're remembering that love is always the solution by allowing those instances where we find disharmony within our own heart and mind. We allow ourselves to stop and let love catch up with us, and then we begin to flow in the harmony of that love again. And there's no justification for denying yourself any longer. You are what